The second season of One Punch Man ended on a crazy cliffhanger, since Garo is basically being recruited by the Monster Association, and they managed to get away with Waganma, Narinki's son. In case you forgot, Narinki's a huge sponsor for the Hero Association, so they can't afford to ignore the incident and have to treat it as the highest of priorities. But with Season 3 on the way, there's a whole lot of monster fights coming too. Then again, one of the biggest and baddest fights is actually between two psychic-powered women. Let's get into how it came to be and who won that world-shaking match. So there's been more and more planned monster appearances, and it was probably best to get to the source of the issue to remedy the problem. But Narinki wasn't patient enough to wait for the Hero Association to send their best heroes, so he sent a private squad of his own. The members are made stronger. These members are made stronger from power suits and have guns, but that's about it. Meanwhile, almost every S-Class hero is inside the monster's headquarters at some point, whether to prove their power or to do their job as an actual lifesaver. The only one not taking part is Metal Knight, Dr. Bafoy. Even the elusive number one hero Blast makes a brief appearance down there while on his own mission. What matters to us, though, is that Tatsumaki gets involved to clean up monsters and rescue her colleagues. A lot of them, even the always gloating in my mask, are facing situations they can't overcome alone anymore. Things that far surpass what they're normally able to take down. More specifically, it's because the Monster Association has an elite group of dragon-level threats they call their executives. Some are even immeasurably strong when they evolve. Before fear sets in for them, Saitama easily demolishes the most physically imposing monster, Orochi, because, it's Saitama. That leaves Tatsumaki with the one who created the monsters and monster cells as her main opposition. In other words, the secret leader on the monster side. It turns out to be the weird one-eyed creature named Giro Giro that was spying on the heroes for a while and giving orders from behind the scenes. Having figured that out, Tatsumaki takes the fight to them without delay. From the start, Sitch, who assigned the heroes on this unprecedented task, knew the mission would be a success because of how she outperforms anyone who's ranked below her. It's not long before Tatsumaki gets to Giro Giro. Tatsumaki's forced into a sphere made of debris, with the monster struggling to keep her contained. But like a tsundere angel, she breaks out with a sensual pose and a taunt to boot. With a flick, she shatters both Giro's barrier around himself and destroys most of his left arm. But seeing as that wasn't his true form, he takes on a more durable shape, his chubby body now covered in eyes. Sure, he towers over our tiny Esper now, and yet she stands unafraid and her arms crossed. Giro launches super gravity waves that increase gravity by 300 times the norm. But once again, she just stretches out her arms and shakes it off. She even dons her chibi form, much like when Saitama isn't in his serious mode to take down a threat. In other words, this is nothing for her. Giro struggles to press her down, with Tatsumaki using just her eyes and mind to both counter the effect and twist his limbs into oblivion. She squashes what's left until he spurts like a fountain, leaving only a piece of the head behind. Giro pretends to be suffering at her cruelty, but Tatsumaki smirks, knowing that it's just a puppet being controlled. The bleeding monster calls out for aid from King Orochi, pretending that he's the one in charge. They wait for Orochi, but silent. Tatsumaki points out that even though the other heroes aren't at her level, they're still pretty strong, and that's probably why Orochi hasn't shown up. At this point, Giro panics, knowing he has no backup, and the only other monster who could come close to helping isn't available. Yeah, Saitama found him and killed him. Like I said, he's the definition of the meme, so anyway, I started blasting. With no backup to distract her, Tatsumaki's able to draw out the true body and location way down below. After Giro launches a last-ditch eye attack, that is, or should I say her body, without even having seen Psychos yet, she recognizes her monster-covered body as a friend from Fubuki's past. I guess it's an overpowered psychic thing. At the same time, Fubuki can feel how much power her sister's exerting just to rip apart the meat flesh that was once Giro Giro. Thing is, Tatsumaki usually doesn't have to use much of any of her power, so her sister, sensing a lot, just means the enemy is coming closer to being a challenge. But let's be real though, this isn't the face of someone having a hard time. Realizing this is just the prelude to something more challenging, Tatsumaki becomes irritated with how easily the enemy has been avoiding direct confrontations with her. In the same way she squeezes Giro Giro, she dismantles this fake body that was hidden inside. Notice that she didn't do that until she confirmed that there wasn't anything inside. She's still a hero at the end of the day. Deep down, Psychos isn't surprised Tatsumaki figured out it wasn't the real her, and throwing a wrench in her plan. Even so, she's preparing her next steps, while drinking and looking at her experiments. Despite intending to make a new avatar and wanting to kill Tatsumaki off, it doesn't really go how Psychos wants. Even far above where the enemy Esper's hidden, Tatsumaki can feel her presence in the darkness. She focuses on it, until she pinpoints Psychos' exact spot with a terrifying glare. That, if nothing else, shocks Psychos and has her sweating immediately. Can you blame her? She's 1,500 meters underground. To make matters worse, Psychos had relays, so she could use her power that far, while Tatsumaki can just pierce her soul with no aid. With 2 fingers aimed in her direction, Tatsumaki forcibly tries to bring her up to where she is. Time to face the music, in a manner of speaking. Fighting against the psychic restraint, Psychos resorts to calling out for backup from her executives, and even the giant dog Overgrown Rover. But no one's around to respond since they're busy with their own battles. And while Fubuki noticed Tatsumaki earlier, the elder sister doesn't miss her presence even while playing tug-of-war with Psychos underground. Maybe it had to do with Fubuki's fear of Rover. Clearly struggling too much for comfort and understandably frustrated by her doggy not coming, she knows it's time to do more. If that means drinking a chemical to enhance her powers, then so be it. The effects are instantaneous, not only pushing her psychic powers outward, but shattering the room around her. Psychos' whole demeanor changes, knowing this boost should be enough now. Do we really think it matters to a beast like Tatsumaki, though? The small Esper drags Psychos towards her with a steely focus, and even though Psychos doubts her, Tatsumaki just smirks in response, tugging harder. She traps Psychos in a circle, fishing her up like a professional hunter. Psycho struggles and finally breaks out of the hold, but their conflict devastates floors and floors of the hideout, pieces flying everywhere until they reach each other face to face. With renewed vigor, Psychos promises to take down Tatsumaki for putting her in this position. Meanwhile, Tatsumaki keeps her cool with lesser monsters behind her panicking at her being there. And they're completely right, because she snaps them out of existence while asking Psychos about Waganma's whereabouts. Elsewhere, Orochi's heart slithers around eating monsters to try and regenerate himself. Normally, we wouldn't worry about him, but since his goal is to ingest the 2 Espers, well, it's related. Psychos raises her glasses to shoot a massive beam from her eyes, while Tatsumaki reflects it with one palm out, destroying the remaining monsters around. Then Tatsumaki uses her second hand to squeeze at Psychos' neck so that she can get some answers. Of course, she gives in under the pressure, her body twisted and contorted like a pretzel. As Tatsumaki argues with a Mai Mask for needing backup, Psychos takes the moment of distraction to free herself slowly. And seeing as Tatsumaki's main flaw is her overconfidence, she lets her guard down just enough for Psychos to slip away. She flees downward, and a blast hides her in the smoke. Orochi gave her support after all. His monster tendrils shoot nonstop, while she calls him to her. Just like him, she wants his power to enhance herself. Orochi's body climbs all over the monster hideout, absorbing every monster that can't fight back. Psychos willingly combines with him, getting covered in his weird flesh gunk. The scattered pieces continue to shoot at Tatsumaki, but she clamps the attacks in her fist. She grabs the lot of them, burying them in rubble that they can't break through. At the same time, she reaches for Psychos below, but gets rushed by more strikes from the things she had trapped. As usual, Tatsumaki's first instinct is to destroy everything with one big attack, but she can't risk it with Terio still in the hideout. So she holds back, and rather than being frustrated at how long this fight is, she can't believe they haven't saved him yet. This gives Psychos and Orochi time to start some non-consensual combining, I guess you could say. They both want to be in power, but only one can lead. Orochi reveals his hidden strength, but Psychos isn't ready to give in yet. As he grows more bold, already thanking her for getting him this far, she unleashes more psychic power and puts him in his place. If not for her, Orochi wouldn't have this form to begin with. And she proves that by keeping him back, all Tatsumaki could do is watch as Psychos attains the evolution she needs, growing and changing form. Combined with Orochi, Psychos remains partly human, but her size reflects the Monster King's growth. But even with him suppressed, Orochi's hatred for Saitama pushes through Psychos' new freakish appearance. Tatsumaki strikes back at the limbs, expanding throughout the underground, grabbing everything connected to Psychos, but she's pushed back. And what's more, Psychos' gravity attack is actually having an effect this time. Psychos' form shifts once again, this time reflecting more of her abilities rather than the ragged and demonic figure Orochi posed. She grows far beyond her normal size, encapsulating Tatsumaki in a dark sphere held up by points from the weapon she wields below. Now no longer in charge of her barrier, Tatsumaki has an expression other than anger and confidence on her face. Psychos is gleeful at the struggle she's given to the Esper, increasing the pressure inside with each moment. Intending to consume Tatsumaki, Psychos licks her lips with relish. But she's not done yet. Saitama inadvertently knocks Tatsumaki free from Psychos' hold by destroying some of her cells. As Tatsumaki free falls, blood dripping from her misshapen body, she gets a second wind from hearing King's announcement that he's found the hostage. And now she can unleash everything she's got without having to worry. Our crabby hero manages to focus on both holding back Psychos and evacuating all the heroes from the underground at the same time. Anyone needing saving, but not given one of Child Emperor's devices, wasn't included. Faced with the weapon-wielding half of Psychos' body, she enjoys the realization dawn on her enemy. With a colossal amount of power to match Sairochi's new combined size, Tatsumaki shakes the earth and raises their body above ground. A tower protrudes from the ground, standing way above everything else. As such, there's no more hiding for the psychic and her gigantic form within it. Tatsumaki flies her way around the tower, and to the top of it, Psychos rips the encasing that was holding her away and bursts out. Now it's time for the final face-off. Psychos appreciates Tatsumaki's display of power, but no longer seems intimidated. Tatsumaki notices the power supply Psychos is getting and intends to rip that part away. With a calm focus, Psychos forms a triangle and blasts an exponentially large attack towards her. It's so big and wide that it spreads across the terrain, lifting up part of the surface. It falls back down with an unimaginable splash, leaving Tatsumaki with some injuries. Also, her shoe is gone. Seeing the intensity of Psychos' new powers, Tatsumaki knows something's up, and it's more than just Orochi giving her a boost. With no fear of losing, Psychos explains that during her struggle against Orochi, an outside being intervened and granted her these enhancements. With her new power and size, she wants to absorb every living creature on Earth. It's all nonsense to Tatsumaki until she brings up Fubuki and the warning Psychos gave her in the past. When she calls Psychos an idiot, the battle restarts, but with monster heads changing up attacks to match Psychos' beam. Tatsumaki dodges the blasts, keeping her focused away from the people below. She checks that everyone is at a safe distance. With no time to waste, Tatsumaki digs in the ocean, raising boulders from underwater. She launches them at Sairochi, using them as a cover as she flies around her. Using the broken rocks, Tatsumaki tries to trap Psychos within them, but Sairochi breaks through, copying Tatsumaki's earlier poses. In a hellish swirl of power, they face each other, out to prove who's best once and for all. Tatsumaki flies at top speed, weaving through the wreckage and calamity they've created. Psychos decides to track her with her senses and attacks what she thinks is Tatsumaki, but it's not. Tatsumaki was able to sneak inside of Psychos' chest and climb through her since she's hollow inside. As per usual, Tatsumaki grabs her opponent's flesh and twists it. It wouldn't have been possible if Psychos hadn't left a part of her barrier open. the place where her real body was. This gave her a moment to focus on the team of heroes and getting them completely out. As she's doing that, she's hit through the palm and restrained. When she tries to fight back with her free hand, the same is done there. With both her arms pinned above her, she's shocked and unable to fight back. This makes her lose her grip on the heroes, and they fall. Now thoroughly pissed and bloodied, Psychos is ready to keep going. She splits the fake body in half to aim a blow right for Tatsumaki while vowing to kill Fubuki next. Our hero Esper stares her fate in the face, but a surge of light flies in between her and the blast. Tatsumaki's broken free, but still hurting from the fight. Geno zooms back to where Tatsumaki falls, using his new upgrades to help out. He makes his own energy blast, and Tatsumaki's surprised to see him. Sadly, he's no match for their fight and can't even push Psychos back. He doesn't give up though, and Tatsumaki tries to dissuade him. Even he knows all he can do is provide defense, until Saitama arrives. At least it gives Tatsumaki a break, and she can get everyone out of danger finally. A large surge of energy comes towards them, and before Tatsumaki can react, Geno slides in front of her. He offers to block the blast so that she can get the job done. With everyone safe, she's back in the game. Genos might be down, but Tatsumaki takes on Psychos' next attack easier, and even takes control of her. And she hasn't forgotten the threat for Fubuki. After moving her sister and the brothers away, she can fight fully unburdened. Going back to her trademark move, she twists Psychos, but also ends up warping the city along with her. As usual, fluids burst from the sheer power of the motion. Liquid and flesh splashes all over, with Tatsumaki comparing it to a fountain. She continues to wring the excess of Psychos dry while suddenly she feels something stopping her, whether it's God pushing back or because Tatsumaki has used too much of her Esper abilities, it's not clear. Of course, Psychos uses that slip to try and escape again, intending to get stronger by ingesting whoever she can reach in the sky. She's learned from Tatsumaki, though, and uses decoys so that she can't be found as quickly. Psychos celebrates too soon, clearly still underestimating Tatsumaki's insane power. She creates a barrier to keep Psychos within, and it has unique properties that only a troll could come up with. Still, Psychos attacks Tatsumaki since she's focused on the barrier, not realizing that it's a decoy body again. At that point, the other heroes jump into the fight to make sure Psychos can't get away. Drive Knight appears in his flying form, not dead like they thought he was. Genos recruits the ground heroes for support to Tatsumaki, since she's keeping the barrier up, and keeps Psychos from getting too far. Even way beyond her limits, Tatsumaki won't stop using her powers to try and end this. Eventually, she passes out though, still in the air. Genos goes to check on her, with Fubuki completely worried on the ground. Tatsumaki wakes up when her sister offers to come and save her though. Her stubbornness knows no bounds. Though covered in blood and barely able to move, she lends a hand to Drive Knight, still on Psychos' tail, by smashing up the walls and ceilings to slow her down. The other heroes attack Psychos with all they've got, not giving her a moment to relax. At every turn, one of them strikes with precision. In the end, Psychos has no choice but to discard any of her evolved body and to run away in her normal form to survive their barrage. Obviously, Tatsumaki gets the final blow since she's the one who did most of the damage to her all along. She pulls out the mask that was twisted into a point like a spear, aiming to end the fight by driving the blinding weapon into the remains of Psychos' expanded body. I'd say Tatsumaki wins this fight, since she even cleaned up the remnants of the monsters in the hideout. In the aftermath, this fight caused a lot of damage, sure, and destroyed Sea City. It's also annihilated Flashy Flash's sword called Insta-Kill, or whatever was left of it. More importantly, this forced Tatsumaki to rely on other heroes somewhat, but because of the fight, she's not able to stand up to the executive members and help out like she normally would. She has no choice but to let the others help her. On her side, Psychos almost gets away as planned, only to see the insane fight between Cosmic Fear Garo and Saitama. After the timeline changes, she's discovered by Fubuki instead and taken into a short bout. Afterwards, Psychos is held in the Hero Association's secret underground floors. Tatsumaki didn't know both about that area and her survival, and wants to kill Psychos for what she did. Another result of their fight is the fact that the secret organization Tsukuyomi took this chance to come and get Psychos and her brain. They revealed themselves more openly, seeing as the Esper couldn't drive them away after her loss against Tatsumaki. Plus, whatever God did to her brain. On a wider scale, the Monster Association loses its shadow leader, and the means to create strong human-monster fighters for their ranks. Likewise, the Hero Association builds a huge apartment complex for heroes of A rank and higher, and the civilians who could afford it. This is, of course, in response to the conflict of the unprecedented level of damage caused. And this may not really be Tatsumaki or Psychos related, but Saitama got promoted to A class. Not to mention only Genos knows about the alternate timeline due to his core that Garo had brutally ripped out. We could even argue that because of Tatsumaki and Psychos fighting, the Tornado Lady spent all of her energy that could have been used to help take down Garo. Or, if she had never been drained, then Garo would have never accidentally killed Tario with nuclear power and helped change the flow of events. Everything's connected in this series if you actually pay attention. With all that said, I can't wait to see when it's adapted and how they'll animate some of these world-shaking events. In my opinion, it will probably be in Season 4, but I guess it could be in Season 3 as well, but we'll have to wait and see. If you like this video, guys, please give it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.